In the near future, the world is under the control of 9 megacorporations that seized power globally after a devastating catastrophe wiped out approximately 9 billion lives 25 years ago. A small elite holds all resources, while the remaining population suffers from hunger and misery, divided between slaves and mere spectators. The dominant corporations promote a sinister tournament known as REITs, the Game of Redemption. In this macabre event, 10 competitors are abducted and subjected to brainwashing before being thrown into a dark and claustrophobic maze called Andron. The game begins with Eleanor, awakening with no memory of her past. As she explores her surroundings, she encounters a bizarre symbol painted in blood. Filled with terror, she runs until she meets Valerie, another participant sharing the same amnesia and disorientation. While exchanging their uncertain stories, they both spot an enigmatic figure dressed in white, floating like a specter through the labyrinth. Disturbed, they rush to what appears to be a command center room. There they find 2 other players, Luke and Alexander, equally amnesiac and alone for days. After the women recount their encounter with the spectral figure, Alexander decides to investigate but finds no one, as the silent woman in white passes through him unnoticed. In another section of the labyrinth, June, Christoph, and Julian, also suffering from memory loss, awaken and begin their exploration. They acknowledge the need for collaboration to survive, equipping themselves with found lanterns and navigating the maze, which resembles a warehouse filled with machinery. Meanwhile, Alexander witnesses the labyrinth walls closing around him. Eleanor encounters an enigmatic symbol similar to the one she saw upon awakening in the labyrinth. Before she can share her discovery, Alexander returns to the group, visibly disturbed by what he saw. He insists they leave the area immediately. Following his hurried advice, they climb stairs and enter a room full of lockers. There, they find 2 other players, Anita, unconscious on the floor, and Fly, whose erratic behavior suggests a troubled mind. After a tense moment where Fly attacks the group, Valerie manages to subdue him with a steel bar, allowing them to immobilize him and tend to Anita. Meanwhile, Julian's group faces separate dangers. Upon entering a large room, they witness a disturbing scene of a hooded figure assaulting another person. They attempt to flee, struggling to open a door leading to safety. On the other side, Adam watches with pleasure as the tension of the hunt he orchestrated escalates. Now conscious, Anita shares with the group that, like them, she suffers from selective amnesia, remembering only skills and basic functions, but nothing about her identity or past. The group decides to change clothes and search for an exit, leaving Eleanor and Luke to watch over Fly, who is now calmer. Luke, frustrated and angry, nearly attacks Fly with a medal, but is stopped by Eleanor, who suggests Fly might have valuable information. In Quanto Isso, Alexander and Valerie, during their search for an exit, encounter the same mysterious symbol again. At that moment, a partition suddenly closes, separating Anita from the group. The mysterious woman in white reappears, initiating a pursuit of Anita, who takes refuge in another room. Alexander and Valerie desperately try to find an alternative path to help her, but end up in another unknown room. On the other hand, Julian, Christoph, and June resume their attempt to escape the labyrinth. During their flight, they are pursued by the same hooded figure. In a moment of panic, Christoph and June hide, but under extreme stress, Christoph accidentally suffocates June to death and flees. When Alexander and Valerie return to the starting point to inform the others about recent events, Christoph and Julian also arrive in the room. Pressed with questions about June's whereabouts, Christoph lies to Julian. Tension in the room quickly escalates when the hooded figure appears, increasing fear among them. Unexpectedly, the person removes the mask and reveals their true identity. Gabriella's revelation as another participant in the game put everyone on edge. She explains that she has been isolated since the beginning, with no contact with other players. Distraught over June's disappearance, Christoph confronts her, suspecting Gabriella's involvement. However, Alexander intervenes, calming tempers, and suggests they talk to better understand the situation. As Gabriella narrates her experience, a surprise emerges. Fly unexpectedly claims to recognize her. This leaves everyone bewildered, even Adam, who was watching from afar and did not expect memories to surface among the participants. Swift in his decision, Adam alters the game's scenario. A mechanical partition activates, cutting the room in half and isolating Eleanor, Julian, and Fly from everyone else. On the other side, Alexander and the rest of the group are surprised by the appearance of the woman in white at the window. On impulse, Gabriella throws a chair against the window, shattering it and creating an escape route. Luke, however, is the last to attempt escape, and, in a stroke of bad luck, the partition gives way, fatally crushing him. After the tragic event, Adam watches with satisfaction as the woman in white's efficiency, an artificial intelligence programmed by him to influence the game, including responsible for Luke's fatality. Meanwhile, Julian, Eleanor, and Fly advance through a different corridor. Julian, intrigued by Fly's vague recollection of Gabriella, focuses on an enigmatic symbol in the corridor. Upon touching the symbol, a three-dimensional printer emerges and creates a laser weapon on his arm. The same figure opens up, revealing a secret passage. Almost simultaneously, Eleanor and Fly are ambushed by armed men. Fly defends himself bravely, but is eventually overpowered. At the last moment, Julian intervenes with his newly acquired weapon, incapacitating the attackers with an electric shock and leading his companions through the new route. Back with Alexander's group, Valerie and Christoph, a peculiar detail catches everyone's attention. They discover strange tattoos on their necks. Adam activates a mechanism that triggers the return of their memories. Meanwhile, Julian, Eleanor, and Fly begin to question the game's security. Julian speculates about the possible presence of hidden cameras and microphones, considering the well-orchestrated attack they suffered. Suspicion grows, and under the effects of memory triggers activated by Adam, both Fly and Eleanor start remembering fragments of their pasts. At this moment, Fly vividly recalls his days as a soldier during the historic siege of Malta in 1565, a memory that seems displaced and timeless. Meanwhile, Eleanor vividly remembers the day of June 25, 2154, confirming her correct temporal orientation, in contrast to Julian, who insists they are in the year 2016. This discrepancy proves to be a crucial point, making it clear that Eleanor is aligned with reality. Adam, surprised by this development, summons Adora, his assistant, to investigate the possible neural anomaly that could explain these inconsistent memories. Outside the confines of the labyrinth, Chancellor Gordon is seen distractedly conversing with a slave who serves him drinks, a rarity for someone of his stature within the elites who usually do not interact directly with slaves. This unusual relationship suggests a peculiar interest on the Chancellor's part in the young woman. Back in the labyrinth, tension mounts as Anita, now chained to a metal structure, is subjected to torture by Adam, who suspects her of manipulating the system due to her previous knowledge as a network security employee. Despite severe torture, Anita remains resilient and refuses to divulge any information about her possible interference in the player's memories. Meanwhile, Alexander and his group find themselves before a mysterious symbol on the wall. Despite attempts to align the symbol with the tattoos they all possess, no combination seems right. During this search, Gabriella's memory is unexpectedly unlocked, bringing her back to her past as a network police officer. She shares crucial details about the world's destruction and the rise of the 9 corporations, confirming that the current year is indeed 2154. This revelation sparks distrust in Christoph, especially after discovering Gabriella's previous profession. Gabriella, noticing a correspondence between the symbol on the wall and an emblem in her papers, approaches and interacts with the symbol, revealing it to be a secret passage. She enters the hidden compartment and returns with an assault rifle, a twist that pleases Adam and Chancellor Gordon, as it encourages more slaves to bet on Gabriella as the favorite in the game. As the group prepares to move forward, Eleanor is shaken by an intense nightmare, which may be a flashback to real memories. Choosing not to dwell on this disturbing glimpse, she rallies the group to continue advancing. However, as she delves deeper into a memory echoing her nightmare, Eleanor loses track of the group, becoming adrift and alone. Meanwhile, Julian and Fly press on. They manage to catch a glimpse of Gabriella and her group in the distance, but before they can establish any communication, they are ambushed. The same armed men who attacked them before return to assail them, and this time, the enigmatic woman in white is among them. Gabriella, armed and determined, manages to neutralize some of the attackers. However, amidst the chaos, she ends up separated from her group. Alexander, Christoph, and Valerie, seizing an opening created by Gabriella in her attempt to reach the woman in white, escape through a large hole. The attackers attempt to pursue them, but suddenly, the live broadcast of the event is cut off, leaving the audience without a signal. Julian and Fly, on the move, managed to evade the challenges, navigating the corridors and facing the armed men with determination. In one of these corridors, they encounter Eleanor, confused and disoriented, unaware of the recent events. United, the trio presses forward, reuniting with Gabriella once again, now cornered by the armed men. In a critical moment, and before the woman in white can reach her, Gabriella triggers an explosion by detonating a nearby gas tank. The explosion is massive, allowing Eleanor and her group to escape before they can be caught in the blast. The explosion resulted in a complete interruption of the broadcast worldwide, deeply shaking Adam's reputation. Chancellor Gordon, concerned about the implications of this failure, paid a tense visit to Adam. In this meeting, Adam tried to downplay the situation, describing it as a mere setback, but received a stern warning from the Chancellor about the serious consequences of future failures. Adam, in turn, promised to expedite the necessary corrections in the game, hinting that he still had undisclosed resources. Shortly after the Chancellor's departure, Adam's assistant, Adora, managed to restore the transmission, showing Eleanor and her group again to the viewers. Adam, attempting to regain control of the situation, ordered the commander to be brought into the game. Meanwhile, the Chancellor, upon returning to his residence, confronted the slave who had bet without his consent. She kept her bet a secret, escalating tension between them. The Chancellor expressed that they would have a more in-depth conversation later, given urgent matters that required his attention. In a location outside the network, hidden from cameras and tracking, Anita found herself trying to persuade the armed forces to ally with her cause. In a stroke of luck, she was rescued by Alexander, Christoph, and Valerie. They, having followed the sound of Anita's voice through ventilation ducts, swiftly eliminated any remaining threats and freed her from her restraints. Anita then led them to the location where her conditioning had taken place, revealing the methods used to manipulate the player's memories, removing old memories and implanting new ones from different timelines. Anita, a former influential member of the network, had privileged access to the conditioning systems. Using this advantage, she inserted a virus that corrupted the game's database, allowing players like Eleanor to recover their true memories. Through this act, Anita began to unravel the reality behind the scenario they were in. She explained the purpose of the game called Andron. She revealed that all participants were slaves who had voluntarily agreed to compete in hopes of gaining their own freedom and that of their loved ones. The rules dictated that the winner could choose 3 other slaves to be liberated. During this clarification, Anita confessed to having previous connections with Gabriella and Fly. As former head of the medical division, she had met Gabriella during an investigation the latter conducted against Adam, accused of manipulating the game's outcomes and arbitrarily deciding who should live or die. Anita, Gabriella, and Fly were on a mission to stop Adam when he intervened, wiping their memories and forcing them back into the game as competitors. Fly, in particular, returned to avenge his family, who had been exterminated by the network. The brain trauma resulting from the double conditioning was what initially led him to attack his fellow competitors. Meanwhile, Adam had managed, with the help of the slave serving the Chancellor, to access compromising files about the Chancellor himself. She betrayed the Chancellor, motivated by the death of her family at the hands of the network. As repayment for her assistance, Adam facilitated the slave's bet on the competitor she judged to be the winner. Back in the labyrinth, Anita outlined an escape plan that began with destabilizing the conditioning system. She threw a metal bar into the equipment, causing an electrical explosion that shook the entire labyrinth structure. Subsequently, she shared with the group her intent to use the files stored in her neurochip to expose Adam and reveal the network's role in the catastrophe that devastated the world. The group, aligned with Anita's ideals, agreed to support her, aware of the risks and potential confrontations during the escape attempt, as they would be detected by the network upon crossing the tracking line. When they finally crossed into the monitored area, they reunited with Eleanor, Julian, and Fly. Due to the electrical surge that had surged through the labyrinth, Fly began to recover more of his memories, immediately recognizing Anita as a doctor. With Anita leading the charge to encourage memory recovery, the group pressed forward. Adam, realizing his initial manipulations had failed to stop the group, watched as Julian, Christoph, and Fly demonstrated remarkable skill in combating and overcoming a group of attackers they had faced. Shortly after, they encountered the commander, a notably more formidable adversary than the previous ones. Amidst the chaos of the final confrontation, every strike delivered by the commander was accompanied by an intense red beam, nearly overpowering the three men with his immense strength. However, Alexander, with his mastery of karate, managed to turn the tide, subduing the opponent with a series of precise and agile moves. Just when the situation seemed under control, Christoph revealed a dark facet, shocking everyone by swiftly and fatally assassinating Fly with a quick and fatal neckbreak, causing a double tragedy as many had bet on Fly's survival. Christoph then turned against Alexander, initiating an intense confrontation that culminated in Alexander being violently thrown through a window. Simultaneously, Julian, upon discovering June's body and realizing she had fallen victim to Christoph, joined the battle, further escalating tensions. While the men faced off, the women of the group discovered a new mysterious symbol on the wall, which this time corresponded exactly to Valerie's tattoo. Placing her hand on the symbol, she activated a secret mechanism that revealed a hidden assault rifle. Just as Christoph was about to eliminate Julian, Valerie intervened, shooting Christoph and eliminating him with a single precise shot. At the same moment, Alexander returned to the scene, managing to defeat the commander who attempted a surprise attack. With the main adversary defeated, the group finally managed to exit the location, but what they found outside was not what Anita had expected. Observing the unfolding events, the Chancellor made a drastic decision, ordering Adam to surrender to the police. However, Adam had not yet revealed all his tricks. Unexpectedly, Eleanor betrayed the group, revealing that the woman in the white dress was her sister, both of them being artificial intelligences. In a tragic twist, Eleanor shot Anita in the back and electrocuted Julian. Nearly unstoppable, Eleanor seemed to have control of the situation, until Valerie, anticipating her movements, used Julian's laser printing machine to effectively destroy her. In the bitter conclusion, Adam manipulated evidence to incriminate the Chancellor, using files obtained by the slave. Alexander and Valerie managed to escape, but they were far from completely safe from Adam's clutches. The film ends with a scene of Julian recovering from the electric shock, leaving an air of uncertainty and suspense for the future.